Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. In today's first story, OP is devastated after discovering that his 9-year relationship with his girlfriend ended due to her infidelity with a coworker. Despite their deep love and plans for the future, he's struggling to come to terms with her betrayal. She initially minimized her actions but eventually admitted to a year-long affair. While she expresses remorse and desires forgiveness, OP is torn between his heart, which doesn't want to let go, and his brain, which tells him to move on. Ultimately, he decides to end the relationship, seeking time alone to heal and rebuild his life. The story highlights the pain and confusion that can accompany the end of a long-term relationship due to infidelity. Now let's get into the story. I'm kind of devastated. I'm 35 male and she's 33 female. My ex-girlfriend cheated on me with a co-worker. After a 9-year relationship. What can I do? I love her. She's the love of my life. But this situation killed all my confidence. I can't stop thinking about the situation. She cheated and I discovered all her lies after a 1-year affair. She said at first it was only text messages. Then a kiss. Then one sexual encounter. Just one. But I can't believe her after all the time she was lying without saying anything. She says she can't understand why she does that to me. We are living together. She went to a friend's house a few days ago and I don't know what to do. I know the simple answer. I know I should forget her and start over again. But it's far from easy. I was going to propose to her in a few months on our 10th anniversary. I really imagined my life with her. We are friends. The best friends. But she killed everything. She was selfish, but she cries every day saying sorry. Saying that I don't deserve that. But still she is asking for forgiveness and wants to restart again. And I know the easy answer is to move on. But I really don't know where to ask. This shit is hard. I really can't understand why she did that to our relationship. I can understand if she liked the other guy more than me. Or if she had some romantic interest in him but nothing. She says that maybe it was the biggest error of her life. This freaking home feels so empty. Damn why people do this kind of thing to people who care for them. I need help to understand this shit. My heart doesn't want to break this relation. But my brain keeps telling me to move on. Update, the relationship is over. I decided that I need to focus my energy on myself and not on her and this hell. I need time. And in that time I need to be alone. To think my next moves and to enjoy life again. I finished with her. She's broken. It's sad, but I need to move on from her. Maybe in the future we will go back again. Who knows? I don't care for now and I'm sure that will not happen, haha. Thank you all for the time and your words. Sometimes it's hard to not have someone to talk to. And here I found some really good advice and people who share their time with me. Now I need to find some peace. I'll be around if someone wants to talk. And in the future share some insight with another lost soul. I'm glad you decided to leave the relationship. Today's second story. This is a story of personal transformation and redemption after a failed marriage and betrayal. OP's spouse left them for their boss, leading to a period of deep depression. However, OP rebuilt their life, found a new love, and even became a support figure for others going through divorce. The story highlights the potential for growth and happiness even after the most difficult of experiences. Now let's get into the story. A story of redemption after a failed reconciliation. Hello, everyone. I've been lurking around for a few weeks and have engaged with enough posts to feel that it is time for a formal introduction. My story happened close to 30 years ago. I'm currently 61. This happened in my late 20s, early 30s. Back then, I married my college sweetheart. What always attracted me to her was how I perceived her as a strong and independent woman. The icing on the cake was that she also was what you could call a Caribbean beauty. We married, and 4 days later we relocated to the east coast of the USA to begin new jobs. Me as an engineer and she as a chemist. I would say that the first 4 years of our marriage were, if not idyllic, at least happier than the average marriage. Since we had no family and friends close, we spent a lot of time with each other, and we had some great times together. Our trouble started when we decided to purchase a townhouse, and I thought that the next logical step in our relationship was to start a family. To my surprise, when I proposed this idea, it threw our relationship into a deep downward spiral. After many arguments, my ex confessed that it was not that she did not want to have children, but that she did not want to have children with me. Ouch. She also said that having a child with me would mean tying herself completely to me. And she did not know if she wanted to spend the rest of her life with me. After these conversations, things did not improve until one day she came and told me that she was not attracted to me anymore. I asked her if there was someone else she was attracted to. Yes, that she felt a great attraction for her boss. You see, unknown to me, she and her boss developed an infatuation with each other. In her job, she had to travel about 50% of the time, and he would accompany her on these trips. By the time she confessed her feelings for him, they had already developed a platonic relationship which soon turned physical. On one of these trips. When returning from this trip, I could see that something had changed. She was very contrite and began to talk about selling our home and moving to a smaller town in which we could just have a little house with a little garden and we would begin new and more quiet lives. I must admit, I was like, what the F are you talking about? You have been talking about not loving me, not wanting to have children with me, and now wanting to relocate with me. She then began to tell me this long story about how her mom, who was divorced and remarried when she was having her own marriage problems with her first husband, had taken a vacation to Mexico and had a one-week tryst with a local man. This all should have raised all sorts of alarms in my mind, as it was an almost admission that she had cheated with her boss on this most recent trip. But I was a lot younger and a lot denser in the head, so I missed the obvious of the situation. After this revelation, things precipitated rapidly. She began working late, taking weekends by herself in the mountains, where later I learned her boss had a cabin, and even taking a one-week vacation by herself in order to clear her mind. Keep in mind these were the times of no cellular phones, so there was no way I could have gotten a hold of her. I still remember how crazy I was going without any communication with my wife for a whole week without knowing where she was. All sorts of scenarios were floating in my head, except the most obvious: she's with her lover on a one-week fun trip. Throughout all this time, I continued to support her and paid for individual counseling, drove her to her appointments and even waited for her in the car. I think the individual counseling convinced her that she was being very unfair to me because she intimated that the idea of divorce came from him and not her. I was still hanging to the hope that with the right amount of individual counseling, I was going to be able to help her sort her mind and become the wife she had been right. After our wedding, it was clear she was in deep turmoil, in which sometimes she would say she loved me and sometimes she could not stand to be in my presence. With time, I started noticing that she would try to get into arguments with me by telling me different reasons why she was not happy. She would keep on fishing for a reason which would get me upset. Once she hit on one, she would escalate the attacks until I just would leave the house searching for peace and she could get on the phone and call her lover. Based on phone records the day she asked me for a divorce, my life crumbled. I knew we were having our troubles, but never in my wildest dreams would I have thought of divorce here. You must understand that I come from a very Catholic culture, Hispanic, and the idea of divorce was anathema to me. Around this time, I had to take a trip to a different state for a 2-week training. When I came back, she was gone, along with one half of our furniture and one half of our savings. I had no idea where she had gone. Back then, I had no one to lean on to. There was no interest, no Reddits, no online resources or communities. I felt alone, abandoned, and fell into a deep crevice of depression. I had basically let myself go for the previous 18 months while dealing with all the drama and stress. I had gained a lot of weight and really didn't care about my health or my appearance. I firmly believe that we look the way we feel, and back then I looked like crap. My ex had left me with no return address and no way to contact her. The original no contact, while making sure to tell all of her friends that this was all my fault. So I also lost the few close friends I had. I was completely alone. Luckily, I was able to drag myself to work every day and made enough to keep the lenders away after almost a year of feeling like crap. One morning I awoke and noticed how the shadows slowly moved on the empty walls of the empty rooms of my home. And it dawned on me, if I did not pull myself out of the hellhole of despair I was living in, soon I would become another shadow in the wall of an empty room. To give you an idea of how I felt back then, 5 years ago I had open heart surgery. They cut my chest open, split my sternum and spread my ribs so that the surgeons could have access to my internal organs. After reconfiguring my organs, they wired my chest and sewed me up. I still have 11 titanium wires holding my chest. It took me 18 months to return to a semi-normal way of living. And you know something? I would gladly have another open heart surgery than reliving the experience of spousal betrayal and abandonment. It was brutal. It was by the grace of God that I pulled myself out of that well of despair and began to rebuild my life. I decided to completely remake myself. I had a good job and a roof over my head. I began to exercise and lost 50 pounds, got a new wardrobe, got rid of my glasses, got eye contacts, began to run and eventually trained for a marathon. I began to rock climb and play league volleyball. I began to live a life I could be proud of. I'm not the most good-looking guy, but I began to irradiate an aura of confidence that people noticed and women found attractive. Soon I began to date and realized that my wife's betrayal was the best thing that happened to me because it allowed me to discover the real me. After a couple of years of living this life, I began to look for another life companion, which I found in her friend from work. We had been co-workers before my troubles began, and she had witnessed my decline and how I had slowly remade myself. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen in my life. The guards in my building whom I was buddy with could not believe it when I told them that I was dating what they knew as the babe of the building. Eventually, we fell in love and married. She quit her job and decided to stay at home to focus on raising our 4 kids. This meant being a one-income family on the very expensive East Coast of the USA. It also meant that we could not live a life of luxury. But my wife turned out to be a great home manager and a better mom. This woman ran triathlons and learned great auto maintenance, woodworking and general carpentry while managing a family of 6. There is no house project she is not willing to attack. We are currently building a camper van so that we can drive across the USA when I retire this December. This winter, we will be welcoming our first grandchild. I can honestly say my wife made me discover the true meaning of a strong and independent woman. My life has been so much enriched because of her. So you see, no one knows what the future would bring. All we have to do is get our act together and trust that there are good people also seeking and willing to share their lives with us. Betrayal should not define us, especially if no reconciliation is possible. And even if reconciliation doesn't work, this doesn't mean it is the end of our roads. You might be wondering what happened to the ex. Well, a few years after she left me, I heard that within months of her abandonment, her boss divorced his wife and they moved together and eventually got married. About 15 years ago, she called me right out of the blue. I'm still wondering how she got my number to let me know a mutual friend had passed away. We had a short but cordial conversation. At one point, I asked her how she was doing, and she said that she was living with the consequence of youthful mistakes. To which I answered, "That's all in the past. I don't even think about it," and I hung up. I can honestly say that in my heart I have gratitude for her because her decisions brought me and my wife together. One last thing. Another consequence of my failed marriage and reconciliation is that for the last 15 years I've led a ministry at my parish. I'm a Catholic permanent deacon for the divorced and separated. I have worked with literally dozens of people that were struggling with their divorces to help them find some peace and look forward to their future with confidence. All thanks to my ex-wife's reluctance to reconcile with me. Edit. I have received a few questions which I will answer as an epilogue to my story. Did she ever apologize? She never even said goodbye. It was as if the years we spent together, we met in college and were best friends for a number of years before we started dating, meant nothing to her neither. She apologized. Did you ever talk to her? We had bought a townhouse together, her and she was paying part of the mortgage in order to communicate. She developed this very bizarre process of phone calls between friends so that I could get a hold of her, and then she would call me if she thought communication was necessary. Since I did not change my number, she could call me at any time. Wayne talked a handful of times. Did you ever see her again? Between her abandonment and our final divorce, I saw her 3 times. The last one, the day our divorce became final. This was a couple of years after she abandoned me. She looked like crap. No makeup, very hippy-dippy clothes. I, on the other hand, had lost 50 pounds and was hitting the weights pretty hard back then. In addition, because of how much weight I had lost, all my clothes were tailored cheaper than buying new. So that day I looked sharp with the suit and tie I was wearing. The last look she gave me when the judge was asking me if I had any objections with the divorce agreement is forever burned in my mind. I guess her narcissistic brain could not comprehend how much I had thrived without her negative influence in my life. In today's third story, OP returns home after caring for his sick mother to find out his wife secretly rekindled her salsa dancing and had an emotional affair with her dance partner. They divorced due to her deception and infidelity, leaving the man heartbroken and struggling to move on. Now let's get into the story. I-40 male, recently returned home about a month ago after an extended stay out of state to care for my mom who eventually lost her battle with cancer. I was away for a couple of months, but as soon as I got back, I knew something was off with my wife 35. She seemed distant, staring off into space like she was nervous about something. I kept asking her if she was okay. She just kept telling me she was fine. Well, about a week ago, she finally sat me down and said she had something to tell me. Apparently while I was away, she took up salsa dancing again and started going back out to the clubs while I was away. She never mentioned this to me while I was away taking care of my mom. I always thought she was just off visiting her sister. A little background. My wife danced for about 8 years and she's a terrific dancer. I knew this when I met her. We actually met at a club and I literally swept her off her feet. I'm also a pretty good dancer myself. Well, about 5 years ago, she suddenly lost all interest in dancing. No explanation, nothing. Just quit cold turkey. As far as I can tell, something weird happened between her and her other regular dance partner, 33 male. She never really told me what it was and she always got mad every time I asked about him, so I just dropped it. I actually had no problem with it because I never really liked the guy anyway. He just rubbed me the wrong way. Whenever we were out dancing socially, I always felt like he was trying to turn it into some weird competition between the two of us whenever we took turns dancing with my wife. I never really let it bother me. I can hold my own on the dance floor and I'm not the jealous type. My wife always danced way more intimate with me anyway, so I just blew it off. I was always civil to the guy and I tolerated him for my wife's sake. They were dancing before we met anyway, so it was no big deal to me. I knew who she was going home with every night. Anyways, when she gave up dancing, I never gave it a second thought to stop myself. I knew she would have a problem with me going without her, so there wasn't even a hint of hesitation on my part at all. I love my wife very much, and I would never do anything to make her feel uncomfortable. Anyway, she's got this terrified look on her face. I just laughed and asked her why she was so afraid to tell me about this. I said you could have just told me all this when I was away. What's the big deal? You're a big girl, so you went dancing while I was away. I'm not your jailer. Then she drops a bombshell on me and tells me while I was away she ran into her ex-partner at the club and now they have an opportunity to travel and compete. I just kind of sat there numb. Now I know why she waited so long to tell me. I was a little hurt at first because I was still dealing with the loss of my mom, and now my wife is suddenly playing hide and go dance with me. Well, I hate to admit it, but I sort of lost my cool and snapped at her. Why all the James Bond secrecy? Is there something else I need to know about you and this guy? She gets defensive and says, see, that's why I waited so long to tell you. Competing has always been a dream of mine. This is news to me, and I knew you would react like this. Well, duh. And of course I get pissed. Walk out of the room and tell her to do whatever she wants to. After about 30 minutes, I realized I was being kind of a jerk for snapping at her and walking out like that. I went back in, apologized, and told her I had no idea this was a dream of hers. Told her I loved her and I would support her something she really wants to do. But I also think we should do it together. First, there's no way I'm sitting at home alone while you travel all over dancing. Not gonna happen. I'm going with you. That's non-negotiable. Second, you and I are gonna start dancing again together as a couple. She cried some more, smiled, and asked if I would really do all that for her. I told her of course I would. I love you. You're my wife. If it's that important to you, it's important to me too. I just want you to be happy. We hug, kiss, make love. All is well, right? Wrong. She gets up to take a shower and leaves her phone out. The beeper goes off. She's got a new text message. I did notice she's been guarding her phone a little more than usual since I've been back. But we've always shared our phones, so I picked it up to see who it was. It was her partner. It said, "Did you tell him?" I scrolled through the history, and this is when I got really pissed. This is just a snippet. Him. I know he's back, but when can we get together again? Her. Not sure. We'll let you know. Him. You still haven't told him, have you? Her. No, but he knows something is up. Him. You deserve to be happy. Her. I know. Him. It's what you always wanted. You need a life of your own. Him. You're a totally different person when you're here with me. Her. I know. Him. You need to do this for you, and he needs to accept it. Her. Probably tell him tonight. Him. Good. Him. Will you tell him everything? Her. Stop. Him. What? Her. I told you that was a mistake. Him. It sure didn't feel that way. Her. Don't. Him. Sorry, I just miss you. I mean us. Her. Gotta go. The rest was just little stuff about meeting up at the club when I was gone. My first reaction was to find this guy and pound his face into the wall. My blood pressure hit the roof and my heart just sank. My ego took a massive hit and my hands were even shaking. She comes out of the bathroom. I throw the phone on the bed and ask her to explain this. She picks it up, reads the text, she freaks, tells me I wasn't supposed to see that. It's not what it looks like. I asked her what she would think if the tables were turned and she read a message like that from a female to me. Then I asked her what else she was keeping from me. She says nothing. She claims she slipped up and told him she missed the way they moved together when they were dancing. Then said she quickly told him she didn't mean it that way and that it was a mistake and didn't want him to take it the wrong way. Kept telling me she's sorry, apologizes over and over. It's not what it looks like, blah blah blah. She says I'm overreacting. I told her I know what I read. To me this dude is completely disrespecting our marriage and I'm not comfortable with you dancing with him anymore. I said it's bad enough that you hid all this from me, but you stopped dancing years ago because of this guy. Now you suddenly want to start dancing again because of this same guy? Now this? How do you think this makes me feel? Don't you think I find all of this a tad bit odd? She keeps saying she's sorry. She feels really bad. She knows how it looks and understands if I want her to cut this guy loose for good and walk away from the dancing. Says our marriage means more to her. Since then she's been the model wife. So why do I feel like the bad guy? She doesn't show it, but I feel like I'm keeping her from doing something she really wants to do. There's just something about all the mystery around this guy. The secrecy of going out dancing with him and wanting to travel and compete with him. And then those text messages are burned into my head and keep gnawing at me. Something doesn't feel right. Am I being paranoid? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Update: to make a long story short, we're divorced. She had been lying to me the whole time. It took weeks to finally get the truth out of her. First, they were sleeping together before we were married. Then while I was away seeing about my mom, they kissed, then it changed to they slept together once while I was away. Then it was 4 times. The SOB was even in my house the night before I came home. But she swears up and down nothing happened in our home. I find that hard to believe. She still seems to think we could make it work if we both try, but it's too late for that. She doesn't seem to understand that I'm done. Her timing was horrible. I tolerated the dancing, but she screwed him before we were married. And said they were just dance partners. Then she went back to him again while I was away visiting my mom. Then she lied about that too. I just can't get past that level of deceit. That's a deal breaker for me. I moved into my own place. She's still staying with her sister. It was tough at first, but now I find myself moving forward one step at a time. As crazy as it sounds, I still do love her. I wish I could just turn that off, but I can't. But it's not like the love we had before. She looks different to me now. Not like the woman I married. More like a cautionary tale. I'm past the rage stage and to be honest with you, I just don't give a bleep anymore. So that, as they say, is that. I'm just empty right now. I've lost so much this past year that I can't even get angry anymore. I'm just going through the motions and trying to stay busy at work. I just wanted to update those of you who responded to my original thread, and those of you who knew something more was going on. What can I say? You were right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening.